Welcome to the Uncanny Lens, where we are exploring self-concept reflections in pop culture and media. I am your co-host, Jinx.
And I'm Minx.
And today we are talking about the 1989 Disney Studios release of the animated version of The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid!
So excited to get into this with you because I have watched this movie. Okay, so first of all, disclaimer or preface, I don't know which one it is, but I've been a professional mermaid since 2018. And so I am really excited to talk about this as we are launching our podcast and transitioning from this other sort of incarnation of our business, Uncanny Occasions. And so this is really just a celebration of this transition that's going on. And I think it's beautiful how we're weaving it in with like this event that we're doing and a giveaway that we're doing and all sorts of fun stuff. So I really am excited. This will be in the past. Like the stuff that I just mentioned will be in the past by the time this podcast airs. But what I love is that there's this fun mermaid vibe around everything that we're doing through this transition. And I'm personally going through my own self-concept transition, like as a human being, not just like in my persona, right? And so this is really exciting for me to share and talk about this with you because this movie has meant something completely different to me through all the different versions of me in my life, right? And I watched it through this completely different lens this time of self-concept, and it was a totally different experience for me.
Yeah, same actually. I think I've probably seen this movie over 500 times, if I want to be perfectly honest. It was one of the only VCR tapes that we had at my dad's house, that and Die Hard. So between the ages of like 12 and
oh my god, both great examples of self-concept.
Isn't that hilarious? Isn't that hilarious? So yeah, and it was one of my favorite, and still is one of my favorite children's stories. It came out when I was 4 years old, like right when my little sister was born, and I just loved it. I loved the music. I loved her. I loved Ariel. I just loved every little thing about it. And it was really fun to watch it this time with my daughter. And experience it through her lens too, you know? Because I can like basically recite almost the entire movie. I'm like the most annoying person to watch this movie with because I can just I just start saying all the words.
Yeah. Do you start singing the songs too? Because I sing the songs too. So
oh yes.
Yes. I mean, yes. You can't. I was re-watching this while I was on my morning walk. And so I was just listening to it at that point. And the music was going and I was humming it as I'm walking down the street. Didn't even care. It was making me happy. And I was feeling very inspired to talk about this with you. And my mind was just going to all of these new places that it's never gone before. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge that there is this like original version of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. And it's very dark compared to the Disney version.
Yes.
So the Disney version is, created to be more palatable for our culture at this time.
Well, and children are, I mean, it was technically written for children, but there is like suicide that happens and it is very, very dark. So, kind of the old school versions of Cinderella and stuff with mauling feet apart to fit in shoes and
right, like the Into the Woods version. So yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So that's
the scary,
so fun that they did it in a way though that we didn't have to go into this dark place. So I'm really excited because I also noticed this theme within that I've never noticed before, oddly enough, of Ariel and her father. And I'm going through this healing journey with my father right now. And it gave me a really new perspective on the journey that I'm in with my dad and also watching how that relationship impacts Ariel's decisions, and where we see that that is such a key to her self-concept that impacts so many decisions that she makes from there. And that's a really important realization and acknowledgement to make in our self-concept journey, in my opinion, because we are originally programmed by our caregivers, regardless if that's a mother, a father, a grandparent, or somebody outside of the family. Whatever that caregiver looks like to you, that person is partially responsible for our subconscious programming. The society that we're in is also contributing to that, but our caregivers are the ones who are, the one-on-one individuals that we are connecting with in these stages in our lives where our self-concept is being formed, and where we are sort of learning from our caregivers how the world works, how to regulate our nervous system, how to love ourselves. There's so many complicated things that are going on at this very formative time.
It is really exciting and fun to look at self-concept journeys through the eyes of somebody who is a teenager and not quite an adult and hasn't really solidified much self-concept yet. So they're still exploring their self-concept at this age. They're still trying to figure out who they are and figure out what they want out of life, and figure out what kinds of people do I enjoy spending time with? What kinds of food do I enjoy eating? What kinds of activities do I love? So those are the questions that are really, exactly. Oh my God, totally. What music do I listen to is a huge one at that age too, right? Like, what clubs do I belong in school? A lot of that really develops who you end up becoming. So for us to be talking about Ariel's journey into kind of becoming herself, it seems like before we meet her at the very beginning of the movie, she's just kind of one of the sisters. She's a little quirky and different, and she likes weird stuff, right? Like human things. But she's supposed to be, the star of this musical act with her sisters, and she has this voice,
The fellow mer people they have this concept of Ariel, right, as being this celebrated vocalist. She's celebrated as having this divine voice. And so that is already a self-concept that we see, that not only that Ariel must have, but is then being reflected back to her by her community.
Yeah. And that's where her value is derived from what she knows her value is derived from the rest of this community, right? So then this is big. This is telling when she's willing to give that up to go explore this dream.
She kept her real self hidden, right?
Yeah.
So much so, she literally had a cavern or a cave. I don't know exactly what that would be called.
Yeah.
That she was collecting, and where she would go to be herself with her friend Flounder, or when she would go and meet up with Scuttle. So she had a few friends who she felt that she could be more her true self with. And they also knew her as the celebrated community member as well, right? They knew both versions of her.
Yeah.
And they saw her in a different light. They saw her as capable and competent and, trustworthy to some extent. I mean, Flounder gets
get out of trouble. Yeah.
Scary situation with her, and they trust each other enough to go through those things together, and continually Flounder stays by her side. And this part of her that she really loves, and that she's giving a lot of attention and nurturing to, that she has to keep hidden, because what we ultimately see, and we hear Ariel repeat multiple times while she has her voice, is that she does not feel heard. So it's so ironic that she further gives up her voice. I mean, or it's synchronistic, or, whatever it is in the storytelling. There are lots of different things that it could be in storytelling, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously standing as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
that she
completely
feels unheard, and she feels that she's not understood. If she she says that multiple times in one way or another.
Yeah. And that dynamic between her and her dad, I feel like those two characters are the ones that really do kind of grow in a significant way, from the beginning to the end of the story, right? I mean, and change, I would say. Like their worldviews both change and shift. Not too many other of the characters. Like I was having a hard time. I don't think Eric has changed much, right? Like we don't get to know him very well.
I have so much to say about Eric. I can't wait to talk about Eric. I feel like I agree with that statement that Ariel and King Triton experience the most growth and change when it comes to their self-concept and their worldview. I agree with that.
And their dynamic with each other, their relationship grows and heals. And oh my God, I cry every time she goes, "I love you, Daddy," at the end. And she's like in her wedding dress and he comes up and gives her a hug and there's a big rainbow. That is just such a beautiful moment.
It is. I think this may have been the first time when I cried watching this movie. I don't know that I've cried before. If I had cried before, it had been out of nostalgia, but I was actually crying. I felt very emotional about a few things. And it's not just about Ariel and her father. So here's another thing. We also know that the relationships that we have with our caregivers influence the relationships that we have later in life. And that includes our romantic relationships. And it's very telling to see that Ariel has to try to get this other man's attention who can't fucking hear her, or is unable to hear her. Like she's repeating this pattern because she still has a self-concept of being unheard. And it's just in a very literal sense now because she has sacrificed her voice in exchange for an opportunity to be human and, explore this other self-concept. And what I think is dangerous about the relationship that Ariel and her father had, and it makes it toxic, is that Triton has this very like, I am a ruler, you must obey me sort of approach with his daughter, instead of trying to connect with her and attune and listen to what she has to say, even if he's still going to make the rule that he's going to make, but to at least encourage her to explore why does she not feel like she can be where she is? Why is she so interested? To explore these things with her rather than just telling her, no, she must shut down this part of her that Ariel loves so much and become something that she is not. And that sort of ultimatum, he doesn't straight up give an ultimatum, right? But it's sort of implied. It drives her. It's toxic. It's so toxic in the relationship because it drives her to make a very poor decision.
Yeah. And then, we find out at the end that he had the power all along to kind of give her what he needed, taking away her voice. And that's how he transforms her at the very end, right? So she goes through this transformation with the legs, with the sea witch, but that sacrifices her voice. And then if she doesn't, get this guy to kiss her, true love's kiss, before the sun sets on the third day, then she becomes a mermaid for the rest of her life. So what I think is really interesting, does she get her voice back? That's what I wanted to know. Does she lose her voice forever? I don't know if that was implied. I think she does get her voice back when she turns back into a mermaid.
It's in the fine print of the contract that she signed. It's in the terms and fucking conditions. What I think is really interesting about something that you said is that he had the power the whole time to transform her. Now, I'm not saying that, he should have immediately done that. But what I'm saying is that he came to realize that, there's a different approach that I can take to this, that my daughter can be happy, that we can have this whole new relationship with humans, because part of his concept of humans was that they were savages, that they were what did he call them? Harpoon throwers or something like that. And that they were dangerous. And for him to be willing to see that other perspective and see the love and the other side of it was really a gift that he gave himself and Ariel in their relationship.
Yeah.
And he had to realize that that was the power that he had within himself. Ariel had her own inherent things within herself. We all do. We all have our own ways of having power. We're our own creators of our own reality. So for him to have the shift in his self-concept and his concept of humans and even of his daughter is just such a beautiful gift that he gave to their relationship.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. The end was really beautiful.
I do want to talk about Eric and Ariel's roles as far as their romantic interest in each other and some of the stuff that we see play out. So there is a term, specific person. And it is used a lot in the like manifesting community, law of assumption community, to describe a person that you specifically want to like attract into your life in a specific way. And it's like a person that you can name their name, or we're getting very specific with details here is what I'm getting at. So a lot of times it's considered like a romantic type of partner. But depending on where you are in the like community and what vocabulary is being used, it can also imply just, you know, a boss or a family member or a best friend or somebody that you would like to see your concept of them shift. Okay. In this sense, Ariel and Eric are each other's specific person. They both want to manifest each other back into their lives. Ariel goes about it in a way that is harmful.
Yeah.
Because she's in a place where she has a poor self-concept. And she's just had this upsetting and distressing interaction with her father. And she makes a decision from that place. But this is still her decision, is that she wants to
run away, basically.
She wants to pursue this specific person. That's what it boils down to. She decides she wants to be human to pursue this specific person. And Eric is also pursuing Ariel as his specific person. Neither one of them know that they are wanting to manifest the other. And they both end up doing things like Eric goes in this place where he is so committed to like this person or no one else. Right.
With the voice. Yeah. The one that saved him.
Right. That voice. So
the woman with the voice.
Or no one else that he actually is ignoring, right? Who is right in front of him, who is the actual person who he actually wants and pursues this other concept that he has based on just the voice. It's fascinating to me, if I want to be fucking honest, to sit and think about and how often we see that play out in real life, in our friendships or ourselves, in TV shows, whatever, reality TV, whatever we're watching, we see these types of things play out and people are usually like unaware of what's happening. So how would things have been different if they had both just trusted that they had, that they or not trusted, okay, because their self-concept would have both had to have been on point at that point. Yeah. Their self-concept had to have been in a good space at that point. Yeah. For both of them to be able to trust and allow for things to play out the way that they should have in the timing that they should have, rather than for them both rushing into these like dramatic situations and trying to force the situations. And then they end up causing a lot of chaos. And then their journey getting to where they ultimately got anyway ended up being fucking traumatic. I wonder how totally different.
But they were able to go through something that was challenging together, and they got to the other side, and they still had that love for one another. So, you know, sometimes when you go through something that's really hard and the person that you thought was a good person ends up just bailing or being like, oh, nope, not here for that. You know, that's not what happened, right? They were both there. They both supported each other. They killed that sea witch. And
I think that speaks to them both believing in true love, though. That's why they would fail. They both believed in true love. That was part of their self-concept. That's why Eric didn't want to give up on this idea that he had. He didn't know it was Ariel, but he didn't want to give up on Ariel.
But once he knew, he was like there for it, right?
He was all in. He was like, fuck yes. You know what I mean? He was ready for it. He put his life in danger for her, just like her father did, you know, it ultimately in the end. And so that's such a beautiful way that we see that Ariel came to feel about herself, is that the people in her life were going to show up for her, that they were going to listen to her and try to understand her, and that they were going to be there for her.
Yeah. Well, because she has been there for she rescued him first. It's the whole plot line starts out because she saves him, right? She saves him. And then at the end, it's this like beautiful reciprocal act where he can save her too, you know? So yeah, I can only imagine that Ariel must have just been feeling like, okay, yeah, this is the guy for me. I'm here for it. Like, everything that I thought has just been proven tenfold, and that's what I want to do. And I think that her dad also could see that then, right? So once he saw that act of love for his daughter from Eric, then he was able to be like, oh, okay, humans aren't all bad. This guy actually really loves my daughter. I guess it's okay.
Let's consider this too, that they both come from a background of royalty. So all of that other stuff that could have come into it, that they may have had about concepts that could have related to class. I mean, we were dealing with the species thing, right? With like mermaids and humans. But if there had been any other thing coming into it with money or color of somebody's skin or any other, I mean, we were already dealing with what could be considered a different ability for Ariel because she was unable to speak while she was on land. And so I guess they did play with a little bit of those concepts. I don't know that that was intentional though, but
and she didn't know how to use she didn't know what the fork was for. So there were all these little odd moments where he thought it was hilarious, and she like blows the Smurf blat and in his face. And Eric really finds her quite funny, I think. He's never met anybody like that. And I think especially because he's only been exposed to these stuffy royal women that are probably not very interesting to him, he's smitten with that side of her, that silliness,
because she's confident. And here's why: because she's got motherfucking Scuttle, her ride or die. Motherfucker is there. Scuttle is wrong about everything, but he is so fucking confident that he is right, that he gives Ariel that confidence. He like projects his own, like, he obviously has a self-concept that he is like, he's a great singer, he's a great matchmaker, like Scuttle's good at everything, you know what I mean? And so for that to be a part of like how other people see him as well means that Ariel trusted him. And so she took this knowledge and she was very confident. She wasn't sitting there, like, she wasn't trying to get attention. She wasn't doing anything intentionally weird. She was just being her beautiful self, and he loves her for it. But what I want to explore is this idea that they both come from this royalty. And so they also both probably had this self-concept that everything's kind of always working out for them, that things are pretty easy for them. And maybe they do have challenges, but I think that comes through then in the big battle that we see too, and that they ultimately prevail, right? That they did have this like weird, toxic, chaotic start to everything, but ultimately through all of those challenges and everything that they went through, everything worked out in their favor. Yeah. It worked out in everybody's favor, except for Ursula.
Yeah, exactly. Ursula did not work out well for her. She became calamari at the end.
Fried calamari. No, did she get struck by lightning or just the boat? I don't remember, but
there was like a lightning scenario. It was
Why do we always talk about food when we're talking about this stuff?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a vegetarian. I don't even eat calamari, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't eat that calamari.
So are
Yuck,
there
yuck,
any
yuck.
other character self-concepts you'd like to explore, like Flounder or Sebastian? I like
Yes.
Sebastian also has the self-concept of humans being like not
Well,
anybody
I
they
mean,
want to be
there's that whole
around.
scene
Well,
where
but
he's
he
like
had that concept
trying to be
before.
murdered.
He already didn't like
Yeah,
humans. And then that's
yeah,
what's reflected back to him is
yeah.
this
That's what
interaction
he
with this like
gets. That
scary chef.
French chef.
I just
Yeah,
it's so interesting to watch it, like looking back at these self-concept reflections, because
yeah,
it really does look a little different. And so that makes me really happy that we called this podcast The Uncanny Lens, because I
yeah,
really do feel like we're looking at these through a different lens,
yeah.
movies that we've seen multiple times. And that's exciting. I mean, we also plan on doing TV shows and things. So that's
Books. Yeah.
video games,
Yep.
music. There's all sorts
Songs.
of any type of media. Like there's all sorts of
Yeah.
things that we have in store. Okay, let's get back to Little Mermaid though. So Flounder.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I noticed in the beginning was that Ariel called Flounder a guppy a lot. And there was this sort of like Flounder is a scaredy cat sort of implication happening.
Teasing him.
So I
Yeah.
would say that Flounder did experience some growth as well, because by the end, he was right in the mix of all of the stuff. He was swimming Ariel out to
Yeah, with the
ship and like
barrel. Oh my gosh.
very, very much coming into his own and having some transformative experience is what I would say.
Totally. Yeah. He was not such a towards the end of
Guppy. She kept calling him a guppy.
guppy.
Oh,
Yeah. But
stop being a
I mean,
guppy.
yeah, exactly. Like kind of a scaredy cat. Yeah, exactly. And you do get the sense that he's, kind of naive but he is smaller physically, like younger, just, you know, like a younger sibling almost that's tagging along with her,
Yes.
Ariel's
Yes.
his best friend. He feels so cool that she wants to hang out with him. But he is terrified when she gets him into these situations where he's like, oh God, I could have died.
What about Ursula? How do we feel about her self-concept? Because I mean, she's very much in this space where she's kind of the victim, right? She's like, I'm exiled and I'm
Banished.
starving, wasting away. I mean, and it's said with like, humor, obvious. She's not saying it with humor, but it's presented with humor in the
yes.
And yet she is sort of in this victim mentality throughout.
Right. It would be really interesting to see an origin story, because we're seeing a lot of those being made lately, especially with like Cruella and Maleficent.
Like
it would be interesting to see a villain origin story, to see what got her there. But I get the sense that there's a lot of jealousy and she feels ostracized, but a lot of that is probably of her own doing, right? So she didn't fit in, but instead of trying anything else, she became this like villain. She became bitter. She became cruel. She ended up creating a lot more suffering for the people that ended up coming to her. Yeah.
That's wild.
And,
that she's
all
like,
of
let
the
me
sea
destroy
people,
my niece.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the other sea people that came to her for her magic, instead of actually helping them, she ended up really causing a lot of damage.
Yeah,
And
she
I think that you can see that with people who are bitter. Yeah, exactly. And that's, you can see that becomes a choice for a lot of people who are maybe not treated very kindly either. Like, I'm sure that her brother probably did something really messed up, but instead of working through that with him, because King Triton is not the nicest guy at the beginning of the movie. Like
I
we
mean,
do
right,
not, we get the sense that he could be a
absolutely.
total jerk, right? And why she would probably end up in a place where she did not want to talk to him, or she had these feelings of anger and resentment. But
That's a
instead
really
of
great point is that I don't think I have ever explored before, is that this is a very like male King Triton, and having all of this like trying to have all this control over these women in his life, and like so much so that he exiles his sister for some reason, and sends his, I don't want to say he sends his daughter, because Ariel makes her own choices, but he essentially creates a dynamic that could be considered similar with his daughter, that sends his daughter to his sister in this toxic, very toxic way.
Yeah.
So Minx, do you have any final thoughts on The Little Mermaid? The cartoon version. So let me say this too. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you before I even give you a chance to start talking. No worries. Sorry. But I want to say that we intentionally decided to do the Little Mermaid cartoon and not the new Little Mermaid that just came out
live action
in May. So we decided to not combine them also. I feel that they are different enough that they could each justify having their own episode dedicated to them. And so that is why we have chose to separate the two movies from each other in this particular podcast. So do you have any additional thoughts on the 1989 Disney version of The Little Mermaid?
I was reading just about mermaids earlier today, and just trying to get into that like mindset of Hans Christian Andersen and the people who adapted that into the screenplay. And the siren song, the music, like that part is just so important to the movie, and her voice, and
and how it can be used in a good way, or like
exactly right,
evil. I don't like, I mean,
well,
I know
so exactly. Well, so that's what mermaids used to be, or these sirens, right? The siren song, like they will seduce you and then like kill you or something, right?
The sailor's heart.
Right. Exactly, right. So I feel like what we're seeing in this story is a perspective of these sea creatures, these merm people, as just as good and just as kind and just as loving as human beings, because we do see that they misunderstand the humans, and for so long the humans misunderstood them. So it's really this beautiful story about two cultures colliding, and instead of a war, we see this beautiful union between the two, the humans and the mer people, through this marriage.
It's like Disney made the changes to the characters' self-concepts, right?
Yes.
So that they could have a different ending, so that they could have this happier ending, and they experienced the growth they needed to experience. If things had gone in a different direction, and Ariel had turned back into a mermaid and had to go back to the sea with or without her voice, because we're unclear on that note in the terms and conditions, would she have just ended up like Ursula?
I think she does get her voice back, because she's talking when she gets but would she have become just like Ursula?
Would she have just gone back to Ursula? Would she had just gone back to her cave and just become a different version of Ursula? Or would she have gone back to her dad and her family and sought love and support? I don't know, because she didn't feel heard to begin with. So it's likely she would have gone in a different direction, unless she had had that support, or she had had a strong enough concept of self to be able to support herself through that. And I just am not convinced that the Ariel we see at the beginning, who has not gone through this transformation that this challenge affords her, I'm not convinced that Ariel would have been able to have the skills and coping strategies to not just become isolated.
Yeah.
was very unheard and
completely.
misunderstood. She felt very
Completely
unrecognized and just not seen by her community.
Yeah.
I think she may have even felt exploited because, like you said, she was kind of objectified as just this like celebrated like vocalist, and that was where her value was. You know?
Yeah. Well, I do want to say really quick, just more about the, cultural combination there. I think that this is a good reflection. And so many stories out there are of how we can choose to work together as beings on this planet, as opposed to just fearing and hating one another.
Oh, I love that. I think that's really lovely. And I think that's a good place for me to want to like take some reflection back from this, is to really just admire the beauty that's in this film that feels very like soothing to my inner child in so many ways.
Should we tell everybody about our socials and where they can find us and hear more?
Yes, that's an excellent idea, Minx. So if you would like, you can follow us on social media. We are at Uncanny Occasions, and we're on all the socials. You can also check out our website at uncannyoccasions.com, and you can always reach out through email or through our website. That's one way that you can reach us. We would love it if you would subscribe, like, leave reviews, and share this podcast with others who may find value in exploring their self-concept through media.
We sure would.
All right. Well, until next time, remember, TV does not have to rot your brain. We can use the media that we are exposed to improve our self-concept so we can live a more rich and fulfilling lives. So keep that in mind as you navigate this world, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.